grew up in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods on the planet. Not dangerous because of crime, dangerous because of what happened every winter when the ocean woke up. By the time he was 5 years old, John John Florence was already paddling into pipeline, a wave that has killed professionals with decades of experience. What nobody knew at the time was that he was doing it without a father. No dad watching from the beach, no father figure at home, just a 16-year-old girl from New Jersey who had traded her whole life for a one-way ticket to Hawaii, and 3 small boys who were about to be raised by the most ruthless classroom on earth. This story doesn't start with surfing. It starts with a teenage girl in New Jersey who looked at her life and decided it wasn't the one she wanted. Alexandra Florence was 16 years old when she entered a bikini contest. She won enough money to buy a one-way plane ticket to Oahu, Hawaii. She packed her bags, left New Jersey behind, and landed on the North Shore, a place most people visit once on a honeymoon. She decided to stay forever. Alex wasn't running from something. She was running towards something. She'd heard about the waves. She'd heard about the community. What she found was a stretch of coastline called the 7 Mile Miracle, where 5 of the most famous surf breaks in the world stack up from left to right like a cathedral built out of water. She worked as a waitress. She worked as a movie extra. She enrolled at the University of Honolulu and studied dance, paying for it herself. She was barely an adult, building a life from scratch in a place where she knew nobody, with nothing but the ocean and her own nerve to keep her going. And then she met him. John L. Florence was charming. By all accounts, he was the kind of person who could light up a room. He worked on cruise ships, which is where he met Alexandra. Their relationship moved fast. 3 boys arrived in quick succession: John John, Nathan, then Ivan. And then John Sr. left. He didn't disappear without a trace. Years later, he wrote a memoir. He gave it the title Fear. In it, he acknowledged his alcohol addiction, the DUIs, the chaos his drinking brought into the family. He admitted that he'd gotten a DUIs as recently as 2013. He acknowledged his failures as a husband, and by extension, as a father. But the memoir also had a self-serving quality that people close to the family noticed. He blamed Alexandra for limiting his personality. He claimed partial credit for his son's success. The boys, especially John John, rarely spoke about him publicly. John John rarely mentions his father at all, which says more than any interview ever could. I mean, think about that for a second. You raise 3 of the most talented athletes in the history of your sport, and your eldest son almost never brings your name up. Alexandra was now a single mother with 3 young boys and an address on one of the most famous stretches of coastline in the world. She had no safety net. She had no backup plan. What she had was pipeline right outside her front door, and a community that was about to step in and become the family her sons needed. With his father absent, John John found his male role models at the beach. On the North Shore, there were plenty to choose from. Kelly Slater was their neighbor, the greatest surfer who ever lived, a man who had won 10 world titles by the time John John was 10 years old, lived next door and watched these boys grow up. He took them under his wing. Slater would later say that John John could understand the ocean like no one he had ever seen before. That quote is from the man who spent 30 years redefining what was possible on a surfboard. But Slater wasn't the only one. Kayla Alexander and Kai Garcia, 2 of the most respected and feared names in North Shore culture, reportedly took John John in from an early age. They showed him the rules of the lineup. Unwritten rules, the kind that get enforced with a look or a word if you're lucky, and with more than that if you're not. Herbie Fletcher took him towing on outer reefs. Eddie Rothman, another North Shore legend, taught him how to box. Jamie O'Brien showed him exactly where to sit at pipeline to get the best waves. What happened next made all of that mentorship look inevitable. John John paddled into pipeline for the first time at age 5. Not knee-high beginner waves. Pipeline, a wave that throws a thick slab of water over a shallow lava reef, creating a tube that has broken bones and ended careers of experienced professional surfers. He was 5 years old, and he felt completely at home. Most people never heard about this part. The story that gets told is about the world titles and the sponsorships and the $2 million surf film. The story that rarely gets told is about a tiny kid in the ocean before sunrise, watched over by legends who had decided, collectively, that this particular child was their responsibility. When John John was 13 years old, he became the youngest competitor ever to enter the Triple Crown of surfing. Not a junior contest, not a regional qualifier, the Triple Crown. Hawaii's most prestigious series of events, where the best surfers in the world come every winter to prove themselves on the biggest and most dangerous waves on the planet. He wasn't competing to make a point, he was competing because he was genuinely ready. By 2011, at 19 years old, he had qualified for the WSL Championship Tour, surfing's top professional circuit. The same year he started competing with the world's best, he was already being talked about as the most naturally gifted surfer alive. Judges would watch him in heats and struggle to find fault. He surfed pipeline like someone who had grown up inside it, because he basically had. The film started coming. In 2015, he co-produced View from a Blue Moon, the first surf film ever shot entirely in 4K. The budget was over $2 million. It won awards. It redefined what a surf film could be. He wasn't just a competitor. He was an artist who happened to be the best in the world at something terrifying. Then came 2016. John John Florence won the WSL World Championship.
My goal's been the same since I've started surfing. Everything that I've done, everything I've seen, everything I've learned, it's all coming together to this ultimate goal that I have, to win the world title.
He was 24 years old. He went back to Pipeline at the end of the year and defended the title. Back-to-back world titles. The second ever Hawaiian surfer to pull that off after Andy Irons. He was being mentioned in the same breath as Kelly Slater, the man who used to babysit him when his mom was out. Up to this point, John John had been building towards something that felt unstoppable. That was about to flip. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. We're about to get into the part of this story that almost nobody talks about. By 2018, Florence had restructured his training. He had a third world title in his sights. He was 25 years old and surfing at the highest level of his career. The runway to sustained dominance stretched out in front of him. In May 2018, he tore the ACL in his right knee.
Before, injuries have been a major problem for John John throughout his 11-year career, even as a newcomer to the tour ranks. He missed 2 events as well, and last year he missed 4 events. So, you know, his results are really held back by the injuries he's had to overcome, but that knee heavily strapped at the moment too.
In 2019, he came back stronger, winning at Bells Beach and Margaret River in consecutive stops. He was leading the championship tour. Then, in Brazil, a wave pushed his board against his leg. His knee buckled. The ACL was gone again, this time completely. Full reconstruction. Surgery in July. 6 months of rehabilitation. He came back again. Then tore his ACL a third time in 2021 at Margaret River, just weeks before the Tokyo Olympics. Somehow, doctors were able to reattach the ligament rather than replace it. He was cleared to compete in Tokyo, barely. Then in 2022, at G-Land in Indonesia, he felt pain during a heat. It was his MCL this time, on his other knee, the one he had assumed was safe. 4 separate knee injuries in 5 seasons. The whispers started. People close to the tour began wondering quietly whether John John Florence had simply run out of time. He finished 8th on the tour in 2023. Rumors circulated that he might step away entirely, sail off on the boat he loved, and never come back to competition. During all of those years of surgery and rehab and slow, painful rebuilding, he never stopped making films. The North Shore footage kept coming. He kept putting his body through pipeline in winter, kept charging outer reefs, kept doing the thing that had always been true. The ocean was his home, and nothing was going to take that from him. September 2024, Lower Trestles, California, the WSL Finals. John John Florence, 31 years old, entered as the #1 seed after a season of remarkable consistency. He hadn't won the most events. He had simply refused to lose when it mattered. In the title match against Italo Ferreira, he needed only 6 waves to close out his 3rd world championship. He blended rail surfing and aerial maneuvers on small, tricky waves that most viewers would consider unimpressive, and made it look effortless in a way that only one person on Earth was capable of doing at that moment. After winning, standing on the water at Lowers with the crowd around him, he said, "The last 7 years have been so tough, so many injuries, just fighting back to be in this position. That was it." No speech, no long list of thank yous. Just 7 words that told the whole story. 3 world titles. The same club as Tom Curran, Andy Irons, Mick Fanning, Gabriel Medina. 5 surfers in history have done it. He is one of them. And then, in January 2025, he announced he was stepping away from the championship tour to explore surfing in a different way. Not retiring, just reclaiming the thing that made him fall in love with the ocean in the first place, before the rankings and the pressure and the torn ligaments. In 2022, he had paid $2.995 million for a beachfront house at Pipeline. He bought it for his mother, Alexandra Florence, the 16-year-old girl from New Jersey who had risked everything to raise 3 boys on the North Shore, now owns the house she raised them in. It sits next door to Kelly Slater's property, and in May 2024, John John became a father himself when his son Darwin was born. The boy who had no father is now someone's dad. The home his mother scraped and sacrificed to hold on to is now paid for in full. Pipeline, the wave that terrified most adults, that took the place of a father figure for a 5-year-old who had none, still breaks outside that front door every winter. There is a small, specific detail that doesn't make it into most of the articles written about John John Florence. Every winter, when the North Shore lights up and Pipeline starts throwing the biggest barrels of the year, you can usually find him sitting in the lineup before most people are even awake. No camera crew, no competition jersey, just a man and the wave that raised him. The wave that stood in when no one else would. If you want to go deeper on the surfers nobody talks about, every single story on this channel is sitting in the queue waiting for you. Hit subscribe and you won't miss one.